What if I told you that you could feel happier than you ever have, even if right now you feel like you just want to cease to exist, like you're in the worst depression, you just feel like you're at the end of a rut, you've gone down the wrong way, you're at like a dead end. And I know you're probably thinking, you have no idea what I'm going through. How can you know that I could ever feel happier? You don't know my life. And I get that, because about 3 years ago, I was there. I felt so depressed. And I remember thinking, I don't think I'll ever be able to be happy again. And so if right now you're in a period where you're feeling so down in the dumps and that you actually even just want to cease to exist, like you want to die, maybe you're suicidal, or maybe you don't actually think about doing the suicide, but you just really just don't want to exist anymore, this video is for you. I was actually in a depression that now, when I think about it, lasted about 10 years. And I was, the worst of it was about 3 years ago. And I was just at a place where I just didn't want to exist anymore. And now today, though, I am in such a different place. And I think that even if I told myself 3 years ago that I would be able to be happy again, I'm not sure I would have believed it. And I know what you're thinking. Whatever I'm going to tell you is not going to work for you, that you're special, that, like, not special in a good way, but, I remember thinking the same thing, like, oh my gosh, like, I would read and see videos and I'd be like, gosh, all this stuff is going to work for everybody else, but it's not going to work for me. I get that. I get that, because I remember thinking that too. And so I just want you to think that it's okay to think that. It's normal. When we're in the worst places of our lives, like, the idea of hope even doesn't seem possible. So this video is about that. It's about what I did to get out of the depression, not only to get out of using my medication that I was on, but also to then get to a place that I think I haven't felt this happy since, like, let's say the end of childhood. I don't remember feeling this good. And that's why I want to share this, because it is accessible to everybody, including you. I promise you. I also want to say, though, it isn't a quick fix. It's not like these videos that say, if you just do this, it's going to work. This actually took, to get out of the depression, I'd say it took a while. It wasn't just something that you do like that. It takes consistent action. And that's another thing. It will ask of you some work. But I actually think that's why it will work, if you are committed to it. And I know that I was so desperate to get out of my depression that I was willing to do anything. And I hope that you will find that little burst of determination that comes from feeling so down that you're willing to try anything, and that includes consistency. So let's dive in. So to begin, I just want to share a little bit of my story so that maybe you can see why I was depressed or what happened. In a way, there wasn't like a single thing. It just seemed like it was this slow grade of going downwards. And then at one point, I was in this bottomless pit. And of course, it started with little things, and some were big. Some included some deaths. My pet died, and I know a lot of people would say, well, it's just a pet, but it was a really big deal for me. Then I had some grandparents die. So there were some also big things, but I'd say also just a lot of it was just I don't know, life happened. And at one point I just felt like I had gone down a wrong road. I just felt like all the choices I had made in my life were bad, that I felt like I had gone down like a dead end, and that everything in my life I felt needed changing. I felt like it was, my career didn't align anymore. I wasn't in a good place with my partner anymore. I felt like the city I was living in didn't work anymore. It was just so many things, external things. And, in the past, I've changed. I've broken up with boyfriends before. Haven't really changed my career so much, but I've changed cities. And I just realized that I was always, in a way, it was like my pattern, that whenever things go bad, I just move or I change and I break up and I want a new slate, and I always think it's going to be better, but eventually it just always catches up to you. And so that's where I was there, just realizing that it was almost like I was damned if I did, damned if I didn't. Nothing seemed to work. If I moved, it wouldn't be good. If I stayed, it wouldn't be good. If I broke up with my boyfriend, it wouldn't be good. If I didn't broke up with my boyfriend, it wouldn't be good. It just seemed like anything was not going well. And I also just got to the point where I just felt like all the good years of my life were behind me. I felt like I had made a lot of choices that in the end weren't bringing me happiness, and I don't know what I could have done to do it differently. And it got really bad that I think at the end I really just wanted to cease to exist. I didn't want to commit suicide because I always got brought up in a family that kept saying it was selfish, and I don't necessarily think suicide is selfish, but I didn't want to inflict that on my family. But I really got to the point where I was idealizing death. And I was so down in the dumps and I so wanted to cease to exist that I actually started wishing almost that I would get a cancer, because then I would just die without the guilt. And that's actually something I'm working on now, because I want to be very careful of all the things that you bring into your body end up staying there. And so now I'm doing actually some work on releasing some of those negative thoughts and energies that I was bringing into my body. But it was just to show you how intense it was and how much I really wanted to just stop existing. The worst of it was about 3 years ago, but when I think about it, it lasted about 10 years. And the interesting thing is too, is that I was a high functioning depressed person, which means that on the outside, you probably wouldn't have noticed. And that made it actually really hard too. You know, I would still show up to work. I would still smile. I think a lot of people didn't even realize how much I struggled, because later when I talked to them about it, once I kind of got out of it, they were like, wow, I didn't know you didn't look like that. And that's the scary thing sometimes with depression, is that people don't notice because you put on that happy face. And then as a result, it makes you feel even more lonely. So that's where I was about 3 years ago. I was so down that I actually got onto some antidepressants. I was on those for 2 years, and each time I tried to get off the antidepressants, basically everything just came crashing back down. And I personally just didn't want to be on medication my whole life. And so I was like, okay, I need to get to the root of the problem. And again, the root of the problem for me came from 3 external things: that, you know, where I was living, the boyfriend, and the job. But that's what's so funny is today, it's one of the things I want to mention, is that today, actually, those 3 things are exactly the same. I have the same job. I live in the same city. I'm with my same partner. And I feel so different, because the problems are not the outside, actually. It's really inside. And as I said, I had already changed and tried to change all the external things a million times before: breaking up with boyfriend, changing cities, not so much changing jobs because that's harder. But anyway, but all that to say is that those problems still come and stay with you. So I don't know. I had this insight that first of all, I couldn't break up with my boyfriend at the time because it was complicated. We had this house and we were doing all these renovations, and it was just it would have been a complete shit show. I could have done it, but I just chose not to, and I just needed to like push on through. But I did have some inclinations of just, I need to do something. Something needs to change. I need to start something. And at the time, I just realized that I rented a lot of books from the library. Borrowed them. I also listened to so many podcasts and then would like research about those ideas. And a lot of the things that I was hearing about was that our brain is plastic. And that is something now that I have seen how plastic my brain was. It's true. It can change. And again, the me 3 years ago when I was at my worst couldn't believe this. Again, if I went back to my myself 3 years ago and said, you are going to be happy again, I wouldn't have believed it. And I'm sure you, if you're watching this video and you might be feeling so down, you might not be believing it. But your brain can change. So I'm going to go through a list of all the things I did. I don't think you need to do all these things. I'm actually going to show you like the ones that I found helped me the most. And there's a little hint here. The ones that help me the most are the simplest, the freest ones. They cost nothing. They do demand a little bit of consistency. That's the only thing that they ask of you. So again, as I was in such a crazy bad place, I was trying a lot of things. And one of the things that I decided to try was going down the psychedelic journey, because I was reading so much about how those things can really help change your brain and kind of remold it. And because, as I said, our brain is plastic. And so if you can actually, the problem with depression is that it's almost like we're going down a forest and we're walking and we keep taking the same path. So we've made a little path and there's no more brush and it's easy to walk down that path, that idea, that story that you keep telling yourself. And that's where your brain goes. And sometimes when you do some psychedelics or other things that kind of like replastify the brain, you actually create other pathways so that your thought doesn't just go down the same way anymore. It starts to go somewhere else. Anyway, so I did do some MDMA, an MDMA ceremony and a psychedelic mushroom ceremony. And I think that they were really helpful, but I also don't think that they were as powerful as some of the other techniques I'm going to share with you. And also, I also realized that maybe some people, or maybe you're watching this and you do not want to be taking drugs or putting substances in your body. And I also understand that. There's also something to be said that the psychedelic journey right now, and there's a lot of hype about it because it almost kind of tells you that it's going to be instantaneous. And it's like, take this and you can have 10 years of therapy in like one ceremony. And I think to a certain extent, yes, they're very helpful. And I really did get something from my ceremonies, but I also don't think that they're as quick as they say. I was actually super disappointed because I had huge expectations when I did them. I was expecting the next day to feel great, or at least in a week or two, or even like, let's say like 3 months. But it wasn't the case. The depression kept. And so again, I think it comes from all the internal work that we actually have to do. It's like, it's not a quick fix. And at the same time, what you get from it, I promise you, what you can get from it is so worth the work. Anyway, so I did those psychedelic therapies, but I don't think that they were the things that were the most helpful. The thing that I think is the most helpful, and don't worry, it's not the only tip I'm going to share. So if it's not for you, that's okay. But it is meditation. Meditation is one of these things that is basically it's starting a relationship with yourself. It's sitting with yourself. It's sitting with your sadness. It's sitting with the depression, and it can feel very uncomfortable. But more than that, I think that there's some guided meditations that can really help. And I'm going to put the links in the description and hopefully up here or here. I never know where it goes. But there's two in particular that really helped me. The first one that really helped me was the 6-phase meditation. I remember when I did it the first time, something lifted, because he takes you through this path of things that you're doing and thinking about. And at one point, I got to a point where I started having a teeny bit of hope, because it's about a visualization, things like that. And it really did something. I started feeling that little lift. I don't do that meditation so much anymore. I like it. It's really good. Remember that if you do try it, it goes really fast at the beginning, and don't get worked up about trying to do it perfectly. Just do it a couple of times, get into the rhythm, and it actually ends up doing something, I think, especially when you do it on repeat. But it does go a little bit fast, I find. But I did find that meditation really lifted something, and I found that was so powerful. Today, the one I do is the Joe Dispenza meditation, which was from the book You Are the Placebo. And this one's really interesting because, again, it takes you through a lot of things, but it also gets you to remember that you have to change your vibration. And it's when you change your vibration that a lot of things start to shift and change, and especially in your brain, things start to shift. Again, that meditation, I actually love that. That's the one I'm doing currently, but it also took me some time to get used to. And when I first started it, his voice completely got on my nerves. He's completely dramatic, and it was just over the top. And I just felt it was too theatrical. But if you can get past that, like now I love it. Now I do it a lot. But again, I understand doing a meditation for 50 minutes a day, that's a lot. So to me, it's more just like doing small meditations, even if you're just doing 10 minutes a day. Actually, that was the year I was so depressed. That was my New Year's resolution. I'm going to do 10 minutes of meditation every day, because I knew I could find 10 minutes. And again, I think it was also that cultivation of some kind of discipline, but also it's not a discipline. It's actually self-care that I was imposing on myself in a way. But sitting there with myself and just letting whatever came up come up. And if you feel like 10 minutes is still too much, then do 5 or even 2. The importance, though, is that you start cultivating this relationship with yourself, and you start also just accepting that, you're going to actually do what you say. And I think that in itself is important. So the other thing that really was very useful for me was breath work. And so this is actually something that I paid for, and I think usually if you want to do some good ones, you pay for it. But like there was a facilitator in my city that is great, and it was a group workshop. So if you can find that, that's really great, and that can be really helpful. And otherwise, though, I think you can do it online. I've seen and participated in some online ones, and you're lying on your bed and you're doing this. And what's amazing about breathwork is that it's almost like doing a psychedelic journey, and you're taking a pill. You're not taking a pill. You're not taking any substances. And our bodies are completely able to get into the psychedelic state and do the plasticity just by our breath. Isn't that insane? We have all the knowledge and all that we need in our body. We don't need to take any substances. We can get to these same states. And this is, I remember, so I started doing some breath work about, I think the year I was really feeling very down. And then I remember that at the end of the breath work, for about a week or two, I felt so good. There was nothing had changed in my life, right? But I felt good. Then it wore off because, again, I think you have to work on it, and it's not something that you just, it's like you build the muscle, and then you have to keep going at it. But again, it gave me hope. It was like that first meditation with the 6 phases. I just had this little hope that, like, oh my God, like I saw results. I felt it, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, like this is possible. And also, like, I remembered the state of how nice it feels not to feel depressed. So those 2 things in itself, the meditations, and I'm going to be sharing them. They're free. You can do these, you can follow them and just get into the habit of getting into those places. And breath work, if you can find a really good person, that's really important. Find somebody that you trust. You are going to be going deep. You need to be doing it in a way that's healthy and safe. But it's also something that I love, that there's this idea that we can do this on our own. And now I'm going to share, I think, though, the third and most powerful and most free and completely accessible to everybody, which is gratitude. And I don't swipe away yet. I know you're going to say, yeah, but how can gratitude change things? I promise, when somebody told me when I was in my worst state that I needed to start practicing gratitude, I wanted to just, say that they were completely insane. I wanted to punch them in the face, basically, and say, you have no idea what I'm going through, and like, how can I be feeling grateful? Or worse of all, I have so much to be feeling grateful about, but why am I not feeling grateful? That's almost worse than having nothing to feel grateful about. To not feel the gratefulness about things that are great in your life. That's one of the hardest parts about being depressed. But what's interesting is, so with the gratitude journal, it's the idea is at the end of the day, you put 3 things on a piece of paper, or one of the most powerful ways of doing it is sharing it with somebody. Like, you have a friend, a gratitude buddy, and you share it every night with each other. But I remember I actually had to do this practice 2 or 3 times before it stuck. Like, again, the first time I did it, I didn't really feel anything, didn't really see the benefits. But now I realize it's, I think, one of the things that has really shifted and changed me inside more than anything else. And it's actually interesting because both the meditations that I'm linking have a gratitude moment in it. And Joe Dispenza actually explains why gratitude is so important. Because when you start changing what you see is how you start to change the vibration in you. And believe me, I know at the beginning it can really feel hard to find 3 things. So you start small. You start with anything that you're feeling grateful for. And that could be your coffee. It could be the shower. It could be when you get back in bed and that you're finally back in bed and the day is over. It doesn't have to be big, grandiose things, but it's by starting small that you start to feel the vibration. And that's the important thing. It's not just about writing them down. It's actually about trying to get to the feeling of feeling grateful. So what's interesting about that is that I find that that is one of the things that has changed me completely. Because again, to come back to my story, I had 3 things, 3 external things that I thought I had to change in order to get happy, right? And again, today, those 3 things are still in my life. What has changed? Something inside. And I think about it as the story of the glass half full or half empty. In the end, the glass is half, right? In the end, my life has these three things. But how I feel about it, is it half full or half empty, is going to have completely a totally different effect. And I remember people telling me about like the glass half full and half empty, but how can you change that? You see it half full or half empty. Theoretically, it's just half. So I mean, you can't really. The truth is, it's half of something. Is it half full or half empty? And that is what you have the power of deciding, though. And of course, you can't just decide it. You can't just will yourself to be like, oh, I want to see this glass half full. Of course we do, especially when we're depressed. You're thinking, gosh, I just want to change something. But it's by practicing the gratitude that all of a sudden I realized I used to see the glass half empty. And by practicing gratitude gradually, I started to see it half full. And I didn't just start or want to. It wasn't like I was wishing it. I now really see it half full. And now I see my life. And what's so funny is that, again, the three things are still there, but I feel so different about it. And it's not just half full anymore. It is a full club. Because again, as you start to adjust that, you start seeing things. And so that's why I wanted to share all this, because I know how hard and also how lonely it can feel when we feel so down in the dumps, and not just down in the dumps. That sounds easy, but just so in that dark place that is very difficult to see any light through. But I think it's just a question of remembering hope. Also remembering that these things are accessible to you. All of the things I mentioned are free and accessible to you. Maybe not the breath work, but start with the meditation, start with the gratitude, and then eventually, if you can find a place to do breath work, maybe try that. But the meditation and the gratitude in itself are game changers. And the last thing I want you to remember, though, is this can work for you. This is accessible to everybody. I didn't think it would work for me. I really didn't. I didn't think I could change. I thought I was always going to feel depressed, that something was wrong with me, that something was wrong with my brain. I really didn't imagine that I could ever feel this way again. But you do have to put in the work. That is the caveat. That is the thing nobody is going to tell you on this like self-healing journey, that it actually is you putting in the work for yourself, that nobody else can do it for you. You have to do that. And that does take a little bit of something. That takes that little spark, that little jump start. And for me, it came by doing that little meditation and having that little hope come back. And that gave me a little bit of like something to follow, that little breadcrumb of like, okay, wow, like that reminded me that like maybe I could find that again. And I hope that you will find that again too. And if it's not through meditation and gratitude, find it somewhere. But it is important, and just to trust yourself, and to trust yourself that sometimes like it also didn't happen right away. It's not like I, got out of my depression by doing gratitude in one day. No, I think it really took about a year. And that's, again, who wants to hear that? But doesn't that make you also feel kind of like, if it is just a year, it's not that much. I was depressed for 10. I wish I had found this out a lot earlier, because 1 year, yeah, that's a lot, but not on the grand scheme of things. And also, gosh, I just wish I could share with you this, how it can feel, because I swear I never thought I could feel this way again. I don't think I've ever felt this happy and excited. And yes, my days aren't always perfect. I still have down days. Actually, last week I was not completely, because I don't think I'll ever go back to that really down place, or I hope not, but I was a little down and I was disappointed. And the road to going up and progressing isn't just this linear, like perfect road going up. You have ups and downs, and it goes down and then up. So I just want to leave you with a little bit of trust and hope, and also trust in yourself. And since I am a tarot reader, I want to end this video with a card, message of love from your higher self to your higher self, because I've been thinking about my higher self who was guiding me through that time. Thinking back, even looking at myself when I was so sad and depressed, and just giving myself a big hug. And that's what I want to do with these two cards. So interestingly enough, we got the Wheel of Fortune and the Son of Swords. And the Wheel of Fortune is actually about good luck, actually, but it's also about feeling as if life is not really in your control, because it isn't. There are ups and downs, and there are things that make us be able to, there's sometimes we're having a good moment and sometimes we're not. But what I like about this card is how everything is interconnected, and that sometimes we don't understand what something is really until later. And what's interesting is, like, I'm even getting to the point now where I'm actually almost thankful for some of the things that I went through that were so hard, because I think now I'm actually in a better place than I was before even I got depressed. And I think it's almost like I couldn't even imagine, but I almost needed to go through this to be able to get to this even better place. And I know that that can sound strange, but I'm practicing gratitude so much now that I'm feeling grateful for even some of the hard things. But I also think there's another message in this, is that yes, life is up and down and you can't control everything, and that makes it really hard. But again, if you're on the outside of this circle, you're going to feel the ups and downs a lot. But if you do things that make you get to the center, by what I was saying, meditating, practicing gratitude, being inside, when you're the inside of the circle can be going up and down. The wheel is going up and down, but if you're in the center, you're not going to feel the ups and downs anymore. You're going to be a lot more stable. And then what did we get with this card? This is the Son of Swords. And the Son of Swords is all about, basically, swords are our mind and our thoughts and our thought patterns. And of course, in depression, that is one of the hardest parts to deal with. But the sons are like the teenagers of the court cards, and they're kind of the knights in the traditional deck. And they're on a mission, a quest. And I think that's how I felt when I was really down, is that I just remembered that, well, I still have the ability to train my mind and my brain. And I think that is what we do when we do meditation and gratitude and breath work, and any practice that is training your mind, again, to go down the forest in a different route. And that it's, again, reminding you that you actually have that capacity, that sometimes it feels as if we can't control our brains and our thoughts and our mind. And actually, sometimes I remember when I was depressed, I wasn't able to. But that's also because I hadn't done very much meditation. And again, that's why even a small amount of meditation, like 2 minutes, can just be a way of reminding your brain, I'm in control. I'm sitting here. Even if for 2 minutes your mind wanders off, you're still starting to signal to your body and your brain that you are still in control. And progressively, you actually end up realizing that a lot of the thoughts that you think are just coming and that you can't control, you actually can. And so I love these two messages of love that we're getting from the tarot deck right now, is to remember that yes, things go up and down, and that we're not always in control. And sometimes that can make us feel that kind of like it's not my fault, or what can I do about this? Like, life is crazy, and it is. But there is something that we can do about it, because it's the way that we actually can start seeing, again, the glass half full or half empty, that starts changing this completely. So if right now you're going through the very darkest place that you've been, start small. Start with one of the two meditations I've suggested in the description, and also start by writing 3 things down every night. And if you can, send them to a friend so that you can actually have some accountability. It actually becomes interesting because you get to see what they actually are thankful for. And sometimes, it's really random, but sometimes it's actually can be very inspiring. Start small. Start with those 2 little things, meditation and gratitude. And I promise you, if you're consistent with them, they will show you love very quickly. And remember, when you are in a dark place, the darkest, you're not alone. But it's also important to reach out. If you're thinking of harming yourself, please reach out to somebody beforehand. Reach out to, there's so many numbers out there. I'll include some, but we all live all over the world, so I don't know which one will apply to you. But remember that you can get through this. I wanted to die at one point, but now I'm so happy that I didn't do that. And at the time, I really didn't think that there would anything that was worth living for. So I remember being like, I don't think I'll ever be happy again. So why would I continue this? But you can get to that. And now I'm so happy that I'm alive. And I really want that for you too. So on that, I'm wishing you lots of love and lots of laughter as you learn to get out of your deepest, darkest moments. I'm sending you so much love. I really wish I'm sending you some of this energy that I have now. I hope that you can feel it because you deserve it and you can do this.